All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're tackling cybersecurity, but not just the general stuff, you know? We're using that SMB antivirus, your cybersecurity guide, to make this advice super relevant to you and your business.
Smart move.
Yeah?
Yeah, because just putting antivirus on your computer, that's not enough anymore. And this guide really makes you realize cybersecurity is way more than that now.
Right. Remember back in the day when you felt like invincible with that little McAfee shield on your desktop?
Right.
This guide is like, wake up, things have changed.
Yeah.
It's not just about, protecting your computer. It's your entire business, right?
It really is about the whole picture.
Yeah.
You've got data security, of course, but also your team. You gotta think about the people. And this guide, it's perfect because it focuses on, SOHOs, SMBs, those kind of businesses.
Like the everyday entrepreneur.
Exactly. They might not have a whole IT department, but the stakes are just as high.
Exactly. And speaking of practical, I love how this guide breaks down securing your IT stuff into like 3 main areas.
Super important.
Yeah.
That's a great way to think about it. So first, you got network security.
Okay.
And it's way more than just a firewall now. VPNs are essential, especially with everyone working remotely, right?
Yeah.
And make sure your Wi-Fi, it's locked down tight.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't just lock your front door and leave all the windows open. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point.
Got to be thorough.
Yeah.
Then there's endpoint security. That's all about protecting each individual device. And this is interesting. The guide talks about EDR. It's becoming critical.
Endpoint detection and response, right?
You got it.
What's that all about?
So imagine EDR, like a security guard, who's not just standing at the door, but actively patrolling, checking for anything suspicious. Antivirus is good, but it might not catch the really sneaky attacks. EDR is your proactive defense system.
So it's like always being on the lookout instead of reacting after something bad happens.
That's exactly.
Got it. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, we got to talk about mobile security. Huge these days. I mean, let's be real. Most of us are probably listening to this on our phones.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where it gets really interesting for businesses, right? The guide dives into MDM, which is mobile device management, and BYOD, bring your own device.
Yeah, which can be a little confusing. So, like, MDM is how companies try to, keep their data safe when employees are using their own phones for work.
Exactly.
Which is what BYOD is.
Yes.
So, like, if I'm checking work emails on my personal phone, MDM is making sure that information is still protected, even though it's like my personal device.
You got it. It's about keeping that company data secure, even if a company doesn't actually own the device.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal for small businesses especially. Because think about it. How many people are using their own phones for work stuff now?
Okay, so we talked about like that whole holistic cybersecurity approach, locking down your IT foundation, all that. But this guide doesn't stop there. It's like, how do you actually protect your data? Which seems like the most important thing. Right?
Totally. It's easy to get caught up in, securing the devices themselves, our laptops and phones.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's the data on those devices that hackers really want. It's like having a super secure car. But someone can just reach to the window and grab your wallet. What good is that?
Right. It's not just about the thing that holds the data, it's the data itself.
Exactly.
So how does this guide recommend we actually safeguard our data?
Well, they break it down into 3 main areas. You got your overall data security, then email security, because let's be honest, email is still a weak point for a lot of businesses.
Big time. Yeah.
And then, of course, cloud security. That's more important now than ever.
Okay, let's break those down a little bit. So data security, that sounds really broad.
Right.
The guide mentions things like encryption, backing up your data, and DLP, which always throws me off.
DLP.
Yeah, it's like cybersecurity alphabet soup sometimes, all these acronyms.
Totally. So encryption. Think of it like putting all your data in a locked safe. It scrambles everything up, so even if someone gets in, it just looks like gibberish.
Oh, okay.
Backup and recovery. That's like having a spare copy of that safe and all its contents, just in case.
So if something happens to the original, you're covered.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Ugh.
So encryption protects the data. The backup is there if you need to restore it. What about that DLP thing, data loss? What was it?
Data loss prevention.
Okay.
It's basically a set of tools and strategies to prevent sensitive information from, leaking out. Kind of like a bouncer at the door of your business, making sure no confidential stuff sneaks out.
So you got your safe, your spare key, and your bouncer. I like that. Visual makes it easier to remember.
There you go.
Okay, so let's talk about email security. We all know email can be risky.
Oh, yeah.
What are they recommending we do about it?
It's all about layers of protection, just
Mm.
like with your network.
Mm.
Obviously, you need a good spam filter. Everyone should have that by now.
Yeah, for sure.
But they also really emphasize anti-phishing technology.
Because those phishing emails are getting so tricky.
I know, right? It's scary how convincing they can be. And then, just like with your data in general, encrypting your email is critical, especially when you're sending sensitive stuff.
Contracts, financial info, anything like that.
Exactly. You don't want to make it easy for the bad guys if they manage to intercept something. Encrypt it.
Encrypt, encrypt, encrypt. Okay, got it. Now, cloud security, this always feels kind of vague to me. Like, I use cloud stuff all the time. But what does securing it even mean? I'm not managing servers somewhere.
Right. And that's a common misconception. Even if you're not running your own cloud setup, you got to know the basics. So the guide talks about three main things here. First, there's securing your cloud storage and sharing. Think Google Drive, Dropbox, that kind of stuff.
Hi.
Then there's cloud application security. And finally, securing your cloud infrastructure.
So even if I'm just using like everyday apps, there are still things I should be doing to be smart about security.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Strong passwords are key, and don't reuse the same ones across different services. Oh, and two-factor authentication, turn that on whenever you can.
E-factor, got it.
And be careful about the permissions you give apps. That's a big one.
You know, it's funny because I know all these things are important, but it's so easy to just click through and not think about it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be checking my settings after this.
It's always good to double check. And remember, the more we rely on the cloud, which is only going to increase, the more important cloud security becomes. It's part of our businesses now.
Totally. We got to be on top of it.
For sure.
So we've covered a ton of ground here, securing devices, data, email, the cloud. It's a lot to think about. But, you know, one thing this guide really emphasizes is the human firewall. Kind of a cool way to put it, right? It reminds us that cybersecurity isn't just about the tech stuff.
Exactly. We rely so much on technology, but people are still a huge part of the equation. And let's be honest, sometimes we're the weakest link.
Oh, totally. I mean, who hasn't clicked on a sketchy link or almost fallen for a phishing email at some point? It's so easy to slip up, even when you're trying to be careful.
We've all been there. And that's why this whole idea of employee education is so important. It's not about blaming anyone. It's about giving your team the knowledge to be, like, the first line of defense.
You know, this is the part that really resonated with me. It seems like common sense, but I bet so many businesses don't actually do it.
It's true. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Even just a quick cybersecurity refresher every month can make a world of difference. The guide talks about having like a knowledge base or some FAQs that people can easily access.
Right, just a handy place where people can go if they have a question or need a quick reminder about best practices.
Exactly. Keep it simple.
Okay, so that's employee training. The guide also digs into access management, which sounds a little intimidating. Is that something smaller businesses need to worry about?
Definitely. It's important no matter what size your business is. Basically, access management is about controlling who has access to what. Information, systems, you name it. You want to make sure the right people have the right permissions, and that's it.
So kind of like different levels of security clearance?
Exactly. Think like a spy movie, but for your business data.
Love it. Okay, so how do you actually put access management into practice? Because the guide throws around some pretty technical terms like MFA, SSO, RBAC.
Yeah, there are a few acronyms to keep track of. MFA, multi-factor authentication. You've probably seen that before.
Oh, yeah, like when you have to enter a code from your phone to log in.
Exactly, that's it. It's like having an extra lock on the door.
An extra layer of security. Got it. What about those other ones? SSO and RBAC.
So SSO stands for single sign-on. It's getting more and more common now that everyone's using so many cloud apps.
Okay.
Basically, it lets you use one set of login info for multiple applications, which is super convenient.
Oh, right. Like when you use your Google account to log into other stuff.
Exactly. And then RBAC, that's role-based access control. It's all about giving different levels of access based on someone's job. So, like, your accountant might need to see financial records, but your marketing team doesn't. It's about keeping things organized and making sure sensitive data is only accessible to the people who absolutely need it.
Smart. So it's really about being strategic about who has access to what.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the digital side of things, but this guide also mentions physical security, which is easy to forget about.
It's funny how, like, even though everything's so tech-focused these days, the physical stuff still matters.
Right. It's like that saying, your cybersecurity is only as strong as the weakest link.
Exactly.
You could have all the fancy software in the world, but if someone can just walk into your office and steal your computer, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. It's about having a plan for both the digital and the physical.
Which brings us back to this awesome guide, SMB Antivirus, your cybersecurity guide. I love how it doesn't just throw a bunch of random tips at you. It really helps you figure out what's right for your specific business.
Right. And it doesn't just tell you what to do, it helps you figure out how to do it. That how to choose section on their website is amazing. They have a best in area where you can filter recommendations by what's most important to you. Like, are you on a tight budget? Do you need something super easy to use? They've got you covered.
It's like having a personal shopper for cybersecurity.
Totally. And
Oh,
their what matters list is super helpful too. It really makes you think about what's actually important for your business. Like reliability is huge, obviously, but then there's also pricing, how easy it is to use, what kind of support they offer, all that good stuff.
so important. Because, yeah, cybersecurity definitely isn't one size fits all.
Not at all. This guide really empowers you to make smart choices. No more guessing games.
I love that. Well, I think that's about all the time we have for today. But if there's one big takeaway from this whole deep dive, it's that cybersecurity is a journey. It's not something you do once and then forget about it.
Very true. But the good news is, it doesn't have to be overwhelming, especially with resources like this guide. It gives you a roadmap.
Totally. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you know about cybersecurity, the better equipped you'll be to protect your business.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into all things cybersecurity. And remember, staying informed is the first step to staying secure.